Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Two Old Farts podcast. I'm Chuck.
I'm Lou. I'm the better looking of two old farts.
You're always going to keep saying that, aren't you?
It's all in perspective.
Is that what you believe?
That's
that you're
right.
the better looking? Okay.
I can believe
Is
that
that your,
because I'm
is
older
that your
than you. I
perspective?
can believe that.
Yes, you are older than me. And perhaps that's something we can talk about during today's episode, since sometimes we don't get too personal and talk about, the personal things in our lives, which is, I think, what people are connecting to is, this father-son podcast. And also because of our ages, you being retired, me getting closer to retirement, and all of the fun things that we're doing together.
Yeah, it's just like before we came on the air. You're saying you're old. I said, no, you're not old. I'm old. But you're right. It's perspective, right?
Correct. From where I'm sitting, I feel old because as I'm getting older, I see my youngest daughter, who's almost out of college now. My oldest daughter is in her mid-30s. The next daughter just turned 30. So from my perspective, yeah, I'm getting older. Within 5 years, I'll be able to collect Social Security. And then, but from your perspective, you're like, oh man, to be your age again, it's all about perspective.
It is. And you know what? And it doesn't change because when I was your age, I thought the same thing. I didn't think of my mom and dad as young. I thought of myself as young. But then when I talk to younger people, I thought of myself as being old. But it is. It's all in perspective and what we do and how we do things and how we feel about things. So what you
And I
got
think
tomorrow?
So what do I tomorrow? Tomorrow morning I've got I guess they call it a CNP examination, compensation and pension examination, because I'm trying to get my VA diagnosis of emphysema as part of my disabilities. So you would think that sounds kind of contradictory, and it kind of is. It starts with the burn pits. So for all of the veterans who served in the Middle East during the second Gulf War, post 9/11, if you were at certain bases in Iraq and Afghanistan and a few other places in the Middle East during that time, a lot of the places burned their trash, medical waste, just all kinds of things. And it was very toxic. So veterans who were exposed to these burn pits, there's a certain list of presumptive conditions, one of which is emphysema, which I was diagnosed with. So what that means, being presumptive, that's because Congress passed the PACT, P-A-C-T Act. It's an acronym. I can't remember what it stands for. But it's a presumptive condition, which means I don't have to prove service connection. It's already done. So you would think it would be very easy. The VA did a chest exam on me, and they saw that I had emphysema. However, they were able to tell that. So I filed paperwork with the VA to get that added. Well, that kicks off a CMP examination, so I have to go to a third-party doctor's office tomorrow morning through QTC. That's the company that schedules all these things, to get an examination to be diagnosed with what I've already been diagnosed as. So I've just wasted about 2 minutes trying to explain this to you. And this process has been going on for months just to get to this point. And I just kind of have been reflecting on this the last 2 weeks, thinking, the absurdity of all of this work that I'm having to do. And I wonder what it must feel like for the younger generation of veterans who are trying to navigate these things, and even the older generation who don't understand or have the access to the internet to get to the QTC website, to download the forms and all of that. And I'm like, what's your take on all this?
Well, I don't know. Your Uncle Bobby, I've been trying to get him to to file a claim. He's Agent Orange. He was in the Navy just off the coast of today, Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange. And I can sympathize how you feel because I felt the same way. You feel pretty good, and you see veterans that are in worse shape than you are, and you feel like you're taken from them. But then on the other hand, like you told me a long time ago, we've earned those rights. And sometimes our personal feelings get in the way, thinking we shouldn't do because somebody else needs to do, or and the other part, like you're talking about, it seems like such a hassle that you have to go through. It took me 10 years, and thanks to you and your Uncle Leonard pushing me, because I didn't feel like I earned it or deserved it, you know, to go through that process. And I had some good people. I had Mr. Ochoa from the Military Order of Purple Heart, who you sent me to help me. And then your Uncle Leonard's friend, who worked for the VA up in Waco, used to drive up there and go. And he helped me actually get started and get my first claims and stuff. But it is. And I can understand somewhat, I think, from the VA point of view, that it's a lot of money. You got to make sure you spend that money wisely. And unfortunately, we have a few unscrupulous people who try to get claims that they're not entitled to. So I can understand in some respects of the process we have to go through, but it seems like such a burdening process sometimes. And sometimes I feel like that's what the system wants you to do, is give up and forget. But we can't do that. We have to stand our ground. We earned those things. Like you told me a long time ago, I went in whole. I was a good boy when I left at 18 years old, joined the Air Force. There's nothing wrong with me, except wore glasses. Other than that, I was in good health. But I didn't come out that way. And we served. And that's why it's so important that we have a lot of veterans groups. DAV is one of them, Disabled American Veterans. And I'm so proud that we are members of that organization, and they do so much to help. In fact, I just posted a picture today on our DAV and Facebook, picture of Adian and Leilata, I can't remember her, I pronounce her name, but from my chapter, who are National Service Officers at the national convention that we just had at DAV, and supporting and things like that. The VFW, the American Legion, all of these organizations that can help. But we need to go. We need to put aside personal feelings that we may have that we aren't earned or deserving. But you also got to put aside and understand that there's a system you have to go through. There's a process. If you fight the system, you're going to lose. You need to go in and you need to understand what the system is and how to circumvent that system.
Yeah. And even for our international audience, just this month, again, we've had more downloads from Canada. Just this past week, we had a download from England. And both of those countries are part of what in the military we call the Five Eyes, which are the 5 English-speaking countries. And they have had troops deployed to Afghanistan. So Canada, UK, if you're listening and you have friends or family who served in the military, make sure that they know to go get themselves checked out if there's anything similar to the Veterans Administration in your two countries. They were most likely exposed to burn pits, and you may not feel it now, but in 10 or 20 years, it could hit you. Like when I tell people at work that I have emphysema, they're like, really? You don't look like it. You're not walking around with an oxygen tank. You're not gasping for air, but it's a progressive disease. It will get worse in time. It's not going to get better. There is no cure. And it was brought on because of my service.
And that's really important that people understand where to go to get 38 CFR is the regulation that covers all of the process to go through for claims and stuff like that. And people don't understand What caused it is the issue, not how you progressed. As you get older, you're going to get, and there are certain laws or certain things in place in there to protect veterans. So it's like you. I know you smoked for a while and you quit. That has nothing to do with what you're fixing to go through. Nothing whatsoever. What caused it is back in the burn pits and all those, and that's what people need to remember. It's the issues that cause the medical conditions that's important, not what happens thereafter, because those have nothing to do. Now, there may be some contributing factors, and things like that. And people need to understand, and that's why it's so important that you get with a veterans organization that who understands the system, because there's a lot into those regs and we don't understand. Like I was telling Uncle Bobby the other day, he was exposed. He was on the USS Ranger. He was on the flight line of that Ranger every day loading bombs. And so he was exposed to that. Water was filtered back through that ship from those waters. So it's important that you understand. And I'm going to encourage all people to support these groups. And I'm going to give a shout out to Golden Corral while we're doing this. They are a big supporter of the DAV. We're coming up on Veterans Day here on the 11th, and they're a big supporter of that. And our chapter, we're going to be doing some donations and fundraisers activities at the Golden Corral on Southwest Military Drive. We're going to be there Friday, Saturday, and Monday. And it's important that people understand what that money, like, for example, we just donated $30,000. Actually, it's almost about a year and a half ago. We bought a van to use at the Audie Murphy VA Center for Veterans and their families. So in
It's
the
a covered,
summertime,
air-conditioned and heated van, as a matter of
absolutely.
fact.
So in the summertime, they can travel from the parking lot into the facility in the air conditioned. In the wintertime, it'll be heated. And there's a lot of other things we do. We just gave out 4 $1,000 scholarships to 4 of our veterans. Their daughters, your daughter's one of them. Then we have 3 other members whose granddaughters are receiving, and those scholarships are. So they do an awful lot to help.
And quick shout out when you mentioned the scholarships. If I'm not mistaken, all 4 of the recipients, the children that are getting these scholarships, are very high achieving students.
Yes,
Dean's List, 4.0 GPA for some, National Honor Society for some. They are all high achieving students, and they are all pursuing academic degrees that aren't just for themselves. They are going after degrees that are trying to help others.
absolutely.
And I think they get that from their parents who have served in that life of service.
Yeah, and in last year's meeting, Raphael, our adjutant, his granddaughter came over, and what a wonderful speech, thanking the chapter for that donation, because we make it so that they can use that money for whatever they need to use it for. It doesn't go to the schools, to their scholarship. It goes to the veterans' dependents. The granddaughter or the daughter or son or grandson, whichever.
Yeah, if they need it to go to their tuition, they can use it for their tuition. If they want to use it for books, if they need it for living expenses, it's to benefit them in the manner in which they need.
Yep. And one more thing on the Veterans Day is going to be next Saturday. I encourage everybody to understand the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. There is a huge difference. Veterans Day is to recognize all those veterans who served. Memorial Day is all for those who sacrificed their lives. And there's a couple others too, that Armed Forces Day that happens in the same month as Memorial Day, and then there's another one that recognizes women veterans. But a lot of people, and I understand that, And it doesn't bother me, but some veterans get a little upset when they talk to people and they don't understand the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, because there's a huge difference in those two holidays.
And for people of my generation, even a bit younger, it bothers them, particularly regarding Memorial Day. Is a lot of people just treat it as a kickoff to summertime, time to party, get drunk, woo woo, instead of that time of reflection, of honoring and remembering those who have passed.
Absolutely, those who sacrifice, and not only it also affects their families. Think about all the wives and husbands or children and grandchildren who don't have that loving person in their family anymore because of their sacrifice. To give us the right to go do those things on Memorial Day or Veterans Day or whatever it is that we choose to do. So it's big difference in those things. And I really encourage our veterans to reach out to a veterans organization and let us help with that. And don't be like me. Don't be so damn hard headed.
Speaking of hard headed, earlier at the beginning of all that, you had said it took you 10 years. Actually, Dad, it took you 20. It was 20 years after you had retired before you went back.
Oh, yeah. But it took, in that process, took me 10 years to get from 0 to up to 100. And
it took 30 years for that.
Yeah. Well, total 30 years for all of it. But I'm talking about in that, from the time I applied until the time I got to from 10 to 20 to 30 to 100.
It was in 99, 2000 when we were at Fort Hood, which was 20 years almost after you had retired.
Yeah.
You retired in 83.
January 1st of 83, officially.
Right, so that's 17 years. Right. And I was still getting on to you about going to the VA. Yeah. When are you going to go get checked out? When are you going to go get checked out? Mom hollering, he's got to work. He's got to work. For tomorrow, I'm taking the day off to go and get seen. And that's part of what we were talking about early on, is the burden that it takes on the veteran to take that time off from work to go get seen to get the benefit that you've already earned. Fortunately, as a civil servant, they just recently passed this to where if you're a veteran with a service-connected disability, once you get hired on in that first year, because everybody starts off at a zero balance on annual leave and sick leave, they have veterans sick leave that you can use at no cost to you. There's 104 hours in that first year from when you're hired on. You get that first year. You can get up to 104 hours for the veteran to go to their VA appointments at no cost to them.
Oh,
they use that leave, and it's specially tagged for veterans, and it doesn't come out of their leave balance while they are accruing that sick leave. And it's taken a long time for these things, and they come slowly, they come incrementally, but they do come. So take advantage of these benefits. You fought for them, you've earned it. Use it.
Yes, you've earned it. And not only you, your significant other, your spouse, your wife or your husband, your children, your grandchildren, they deserve it too. And like for me, we're coming up on 6 years in March, so I got another 4 years to go before, if something happens to me before your mom, and she's still alive, before she get benefits and those kind of things. But it's really important that you get this stuff done, because they are entitled to benefits. Because you know what? They served right along with us. When I was in Vietnam, your mom was home by herself. Well, not by herself. She was with her family. So,
but she wasn't with you.
Absolutely. And then when we went to Japan, she went over there. When we went to Georgia, she was there. And those things. When you deployed to Germany, who went with you? Brenda went with you. What does she have to do while you're working? So they sacrifice right along with us. And I guess that's one of the things that irritates me about the system is we don't give enough credit or we don't have enough
Enough
benefits
benefits for the family.
for their families. Yeah, things are changing, but that's why it's so important that we understand things and we make decisions and we encourage people to support our veterans and stuff. That's why I love Golden Corral for what they do to help veterans. And I'm going to tell you, if you want a good meal from Golden Corral, go to Southwest Military. Operating partner Charles Birch, he runs a super great organization over there in the restaurant.
And so many veterans, because we've done the fundraising drive during that week for Thanksgiving, and it's a national campaign with DAV. So half of the money that's raised by the veterans organizations that are out front, half goes to that local chapter, and the other half goes into the national chapter to help these. And at the national level, those are the ones who are pushing your senators and your Congress people to make these laws and to bring these things to light that the American people don't really know about. Just like the firefighters and first responders after 9/11, they rushed head in and not knowing just like a burn pit, I guess, the smoke and all of that stuff they were inhaling, like they are suffering now.
Absolutely.
They themselves. And if they pass and there's nothing left, what's left for their family and their children?
Yeah. And the other thing
Through
about
their service, through no fault of their own.
On Golden Corral on Monday night, the was that 13th? Anyway, on Monday night, Golden Corral celebrates all of the veterans from 5 to 8. Any veteran who comes by will get a complimentary meal. Just the veterans, not their family or spouse or anything, but the veterans themselves will get a free meal at Golden Corral from 5 to 8 on Monday night.
Monday the 13th, November 13th.
Exactly.
This is October, and we just had Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Veterans Day is actually on Saturday the 11th, so Monday the 13th that's the day Golden Corral. So big event and a big supporter of veterans, and good luck tomorrow. Go in with a good attitude. Yes, sir. No,
Of
sir.
course.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. But
it is what it is. You gotta. It's just the system. I don't understand it, but it made sense to somebody when they devised it that way. I guess.
And another part, share with us why it's so important tomorrow that you try to get this on your list. You're already 100% disabled, but why is it important that you're doing this to get this added on to because you're not going to get any more money out of it.
No. And you hinted on it just a few minutes ago when you talked about spouses. So, and this directly affected my wife and her family because when her father died, one of his service-connected conditions was a contributing factor in his death. And because of that, and it was on the death certificate, her mother, my mother-in-law, is able to get a pension from the VA because of his service and what it cost to him decades after.
Yeah,
so that's why it's important.
Absolutely.
Part of his service affected his health and was a contributing factor in his death, and that's why it's important for veterans to get these things in their records.
Absolutely. And for all your active duty members, if something bothers you, it doesn't matter how minor it may seem, you need to get it in your records because later it becomes very important later in life if you decide you want to make a claim and those kind of things. So,
and I tell the people that I work with, because I work with the active duty every day as part of my job, and I learned this lesson from you and Mom as a teenager when I was hanging around with not so savory teenage friends doing unsavory things. You would always say about who's got your best interest, who loves you more than you. is you, the parents. So they need to adopt that same thing. Nobody loves you like you love you.
Absolutely.
And if you love you and you love your family, make sure you're getting seen. If you're not getting the type of treatment, or the doctors aren't treating the illness as seriously as you think they should, be the squeaky wheel. Keep making the appointments. Eventually, you'll get seen by a specialist, and that shows the VA that it's service connected, because you've gone repeatedly to be seen for this thing.
Absolutely.
That's just as important as them actually diagnosing you with something.
Absolutely. All right. Trifecta for San Antonio football yesterday.
UTSA won.
UTSA
Did UIW win?
Incarnate Word won.
And who else?
Texas Bobcats.
Well, that's not San Antonio. That's San Marcos.
Well, it's in that area. Yeah. So that's a pretty good day. And you know what? They were good
Except
ball.
A&M did not win.
No.
UT was off. I think TCU won.
I don't remember about the rest of them. I just thought that was kind of neat that all three of them in this San Antonio area, they all won yesterday. UTSA was pretty convincing, 41-20 with UAB, and somebody asked me the other day, "Well, you're going to root for UAB because University of Alabama Birmingham?" I said, "No, I got to root for the Roadrunners. Got to root for them." Then
my sister and niece are both graduates, and my wife.
Yep.
A lot of UTSA in the family.
Yep. And then we're going to go Bobcats homecoming here in another week or two, a few weeks down the road. So.
Yep, 2 Saturdays.
Yep. So that's going to be fun. Then we're going to go to homecoming. Alabama pulled one out yesterday.
The second half of that game. But more importantly, this week, what week is it? What's this week? I just posted on Facebook yesterday. What's this week called for Alabama?
Oh, this is Hate Week.
Tennessee Hate Week.
That's right. Yep.
Tennessee Hate Week. No orange in the city of Tuscaloosa at all. It is not allowed.
I don't root for Tennessee, but yesterday was kind of pulling for them just a little bit, because I thought maybe if they won that atmosphere and them boys believing they can whoop anybody, and and going into next week, I think it makes it a little bit easier for us. But that's just my way of looking at it.
Yeah, that second half, I think they lost their eye on the prize. I think they got a lot complacent, and I think maybe they were looking ahead towards that Tennessee game next week.
I totally agree with you, because you can see it, and you can see it in Coach Saban. He come unglued there a couple of times there, because he knows those boys better than anybody.
Tennessee, if they catch you slipping, they can beat you.
Yeah, and you got to stay focused. It's a 60-minute game, and you can't. You just 1 second, and that one play with Arnold, number 3, grabbed KJ Jefferson. That was funny. Even Saban made some comments about it today or last night about it being funny. Now he's 247 pounds or something like that. And he
did you notice after the game, when the players were on the field and a lot of them are going up and congratulating each other, that one player, I think his last name was Landry. I can't, or Landon. He was
Landon Robinson.
He was either a linebacker, and he was just getting all over Milroe that day. I mean, he sacked him 3 times, 4 times.
Yep.
After the game, he and Milroe went up to each other and they hugged each other.
Yep. And that's what you like to see in sports. They played their heart out, and when the game's over, you leave it on the field and you go back and
that's it.
Yeah,
it's just a game.
it's just a game, and it's important that I love the UTSA coach. And I don't know too much about the Bobcats coach, but what I've seen, I really like him because they're into their players. You can see that, and the players buy into it. I was watching Houston and West Virginia the other night. Less than a minute to go, West Virginia came down and scored. It looked like they're going to win the ball game. The coach at Houston, he's over talking to his kids, and you didn't see his facial like they got 7 seconds to go in that ball game. You didn't see like he was just over talking. It's like, guess what? The Hail Mary, and they end up winning the ball game with 7 seconds to go. And that's what makes it fun when you see coaches who really coach these young men, and not just football, but in all sports, because they're developing people to be people, good people, rather than
the good coaches are. You're right.
yes,
They're about developing young adults,
yep,
young men and women of character, and not just the
yep,
outcome of the game.
absolutely, absolutely.
And speaking of the outcome of the game and endings, with 7 seconds to go, we just crossed that 30-minute threshold. We're at 31 and a half minutes. So you know what that means.
Yep, Aunt Carolyn said it's time for us to go.
Yep. Otherwise, we just start dragging on and on and looking for things to talk about.
And I'll save my trivia questions for next time.
Okay.
I got some,
And next time I'll talk about the concerts that I went to. Dropkick Murphys last Sunday night. This Sunday night, I'm going to see a band called Helmet. Tuesday night, I'm going to see Cannibal Corpse. So we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about on my concerts, as well as the trivia that you're going to talk about. And we could talk about the Tennessee-Alabama game as well.
absolutely, that's going to be a game at 2:30.
Yes, it will.
So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Well,
It's
good
time to
luck
wrap
tomorrow.
this thing up.
Mind
Thank
your
you,
manners
sir.
tomorrow. And just remember,
Yes, sir.
they're not against you.
All right.
All right. Love you.
Y'all take care. Love you too,
Have a
Dad.
good week. See ya.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.